Hi, and welcome to the Brisbane Professionals Podcast. This is a podcast brought to you by SMS Law, going through the legal secrets that will benefit you and your clients, as well as having a little bit of fun as we go. This podcast is designed to educate you on, number one, complicated legal terms that we will explain in an easy to understand manner. Two, to understand why you do things from a legal perspective in your business. And three, to help you develop a plan for the future success of your business. Our mission is to help empower small to medium-sized businesses around the world to get access to legal advice so that they can help build their communities and make the world a better place. Did you know that any business owner is on average 7 months away from losing everything? That is the average time that it takes from a successful business to fold when an aspect of their business is not set up correctly. This podcast is all about empowering you and your business with knowledge and tools to ensure that that doesn't happen to you or to your clients. Let's begin, shall we?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Brisbane Professional Podcast brought to you by SMS Law. My name is Craig Mason, and I have with me, as always, Mr. Jeremy Stratton. Say hello to everyone, please, Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Craig Mason. Hello, everyone. Hope you're having an awesome day.
Indeed. Now, we would like to, and you may, if you're watching the video, you'll see that there's another friendly chap there. His name is Josip Matanovic, and he's from Vincents Accountants. So he's our special guest for today's podcast. We should, Jeremy. I don't know if you ever listened to the Smartless podcast, but what they do when they have those special guests, it's a black screen, and then they introduce, and then they pop up because it's actually a surprise to the other presenter as to who the guest is. So we might steal that.
We could just put a big black mark over Josip's face here, and
It's like
Yeah, indeed. So back to what we wanted to chat about. So as I said, Josip's from Vincent, so he's a director there in the business advisory section. He's an accredited business valuation specialist. It's very big. And does a lot of work in the pharmacy, retail management sector. That includes business valuations for pharmacies, income tax compliance, and it said on their BSA, but I presume you do
that's a little outdated. It's QVCC.
Yeah, licensing compliance, which is still a thing. So yeah, we put Josip onto the show to give his insight into what's been happening in the world of accounting. We've got a couple of questions for him, and we know that a lot of the information that he'll share is valuable to our listeners, and we appreciate you joining us, Josip, and giving up your time to be on the show.
Well, thanks for having me, guys, and hello, everyone.
Alrighty. Let's start with, Josip, just a bit of background as to your role at Vincents.
Well, I'm one of the directors in the business advisory division here at Vincents. So Vincents, I guess, is a full service firm. So we look after essentially from infancy right through to death, to put it that way, with our insolvency division. We also have a forensic division, which I guess deal with disputes and I guess assist legal practitioners along the way with economic loss calculations or valuations as well. And then we've also got a financial advisory division here, which helps create wealth outside of your business with a fully functioning stockbroking arm. So I sit on top of the business advisory division. We've got roughly sort of 60 people here that we sit above and manage, and we go about just delivering extraordinary service to clients.
Excellent. And so yes, just having a look at some of your background here. You started in Vincents in about 2005.
I did. So I came across from another sort of mid-tier firm in Brisbane, and then came across wanting to do more general sort of accounting work. So where I was specifically pharmacy. I just wanted to get a greater breadth of knowledge. So I came across to Vincents and got that here. Stayed here and became a director in, I guess, 2012. And I still remain a director today.
And when you were sitting there at Padua College, wasn't it?
It was.
As a young fella. What made you, pick accountancy and start off in the industry back in whenever that was? I'm going to say 1997.
That was correct, Craig. Well, basically accounting, I guess I got interested in both accounting and law in high school. It was really from a mum who used to do books for sort of businesses that we had along the way. So I got a bit of an interest there. And it just seemed to be a natural sort of subject for me at school. It came pretty easily, which was pretty good. Felt good. Got ducks in both year 11 and 12. So it was sort of a natural progression. Started doing some law at uni and just felt it wasn't for me. So slipped back into business and stayed there and finished that degree.
Yeah, very good. Very good. I didn't know that about you. Very good.
It was only a semester.
That's right.
Actually, half a semester.
So let's talk about like recently. So obviously we're recording this in the middle of 2021. And there's been significant changes in all industries, really. How have you seen your industry, as in the business advisory space, really been impacted and changed over the pandemic of 2020 and 2021? What have you seen?
Look, we were sort of thrust, like there's obviously a lot of panic around March sort of 2020. I think back to before that, I was on holidays overseas, came back to an absolute, just changed world. There was face masks on arrival coming back from the US, and before you knew it, sort of March, we were into lockdowns, and then it basically felt like Armageddon from a business standpoint. I only reflected on that the other day, but businesses were sort of feeling it as well. So during lockdown, there was just no support at that stage, and the government was quickly trying to put things in action. So and obviously you had cash flow boosts for employers that came out, but then they found that policy was a little bit flawed. So then they added JobKeeper on top of that. So it sort of, it helped get one and the other sort of in terms of assistance. But from an accounting point of view, it has really strengthened our relationship with clients. In some cases, we were bearers of bad news. So we were really the gatekeeper of government policy in terms of assessing clients' eligibility into JobKeeper, and that meant from time to time that's some bad, not bad advice, but had to give some bad news in terms of you're not eligible because you're 27% down rather than the 30, and you had some sort of tough conversations along the way, but through that, I think the relationship has strengthened because we were able to give some practical advice in terms of if they weren't eligible, then what they needed to do to sort of keep their business on life support until they got back on their feet again. So it really has forced us to adapt. In terms of the office here, it meant obviously with the lockdowns that we were not in the office, so we had to work remotely. So luckily we're pretty well geared for that. Most of all our work paper software is all, and as well as the compliance stuff, can be all managed externally. So from that perspective, it really didn't affect us from a workflow point of view. What we did find is maybe the mental health aspect. We'd prefer to have people in here just so we could sort of allow people to switch off, have a conversation with someone else, because we found that people or staff actually worked a little bit harder and longer. I don't know what you guys observed, but I think they just had difficulty switching off because they were at home all day.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. That most people, if they're at home, it's very easy to walk downstairs or go into the other bedroom and do some work. So it does become a mental health issue, doesn't it, for people? That split between work and home.
Yeah. So what did you put in place to prevent that, or help prevent it at least?
I guess we were very keen to get people back in the office as soon as practical. So, and that's what we did. We've also got, employee assistance programs where they're able to, if they needed to talk to someone, they could. But as soon as we could, we get them back into the office purely to sort of, bring it back to some sort of level of normality, and also provide, a degree of flexibility. So if they did want to work from home, they still could, and they could pick and choose which days they wanted to work from home. So that still remained, but primarily we all work out of the office unless you don't want to.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like Vincent's seemed like they were pretty equipped. They, were able to have the things in place already, and obviously you were pretty essential during the pandemic as well from an accountancy point of view. Can you tell us some more about how your clients, so the actual businesses, innovated, last year and into this year, and what you see happening in the future with those businesses?
Oh, look, in terms of, I guess, there needed to be, I think the focus finally shifted to actually, business owners looking at their numbers. Whilst times are good, you just accept that, the money's always going to be there in the bank, and you take, things for granted. And then it took something like this where, you're shut down for 2 weeks and you've got no revenue stream coming in, but your expenses are still carrying on like a semi-trailer behind you. Like all of a sudden, it's going to cause a crash. So what a lot of clients did was really shift the focus to the numbers, and look at sort of cost structures, and look at sort of eliminating waste as a first point of call. In terms of some hospitality venues, they also then shifted, I guess, their revenue models a little bit. So, going more to a takeaway, which meant that the staffing structure had to be a little bit different. But what all enabled that was, I guess, the JobKeeper that was there just to help fund that along. So I think, without that safety net, I think we might need to, we'll definitely see more progression in sort of innovation in that space, certainly. But other businesses will be just focused on sort of looking at cost structures and making them as lean as possible.
And what are you finding too with this? Obviously, as I said before, we're recording this in July 2021. We've had a few short lockdowns in Brisbane where we are. Has that changed people's approach at all, or are they still on that kind of same path that you've been talking about?
Oh, look, I think it's only really affecting businesses that can't really operate under a lockdown situation. So think, restaurants and, bars, cinemas is another one. There's a few that don't operate during a lockdown. So they've got to be sort of mindful that their cost structure, without the safety net there at the moment, that their cost structures are as lean as possible. For businesses that, I guess, are able to operate under a lockdown situation, they hopefully have gone through that exercise anyway, and are able to work through a lockdown, but are probably finding themselves in a much stronger position at this point in time than they ever have.
Yeah. And so the lessons learned about being lean and, dropping costs and those sorts of things. Now, when you're talking to your clients about establishing financial controls going forward, is that now you can easily say, well, if there's a pandemic or if the world ends, everyone sort of appreciates that more now. So have you had conversations about that with clients more often now that may not have really been affected by the pandemic, but really need to think about it in the future to safeguard against something else that may happen?
Oh, look, definitely. They clients are a lot more aware of their break-even point now, so what they need to turn over in order to just break even, and that's a key number. And if business owners don't know that, then they really should start getting to know that number. And obviously, the way you get your break-even point a little bit lower is looking at your cost structures and eliminating waste. So there might be sort of, certainly what we get our clients to do is look a number of clients go line item by line item, and basically look at where they were spending money. First question they asked was, do we need it? Second question is, if we did need it, can we get it for a better price? And then they immediately shop around, and they did that line item by line item. And then it also comes down to sort of staffing. So unfortunately, during these times where you've got lockdowns, it may mean that you sort of need to adjust your labour costs as well. And that's always an emotional sort of decision, and it shouldn't be taken lightly.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. So we've talked a bit about what's been happening and that in the last year and a half or so, which has been certainly the most unique time, I think, for probably all of us in business. What about moving forward? So, Craig was asking about financial controls before. Like, what do you see as the key things that people should have in place? Not with the pandemic in mind, but just in general in business in mind. What are the fundamental controls they should have in place for their business?
I'll look at a bare minimum, they should have a system that records their income and expenses. So an accounting package, whether that's an online cloud-based package like Xero, or something, a small desktop product. You really need to sort of tailor that to where your business is at, because it can get quite expensive once you start layering software subscription costs on. From there, you need to be like, if you've got say invoices out to customers, you need to be aware of who owes you money, and then also who you owe money to. So obviously you need a creditor system in there that sort of you're aware of who you pay who you owe money to, and then also if you've got sort of someone doing the data entry for you into those accounting systems, a segregation of duties and a cross check between the data that's been put in to say a Xero file, for example, and then from there and how it gets to the payment side of things through your bank. So you don't want the same person doing all authorities all the way through. And then another important aspect would be looking at sort of budgets and cash flows, cash flow forecasts. So one tool we really like to use is a 13-week rolling cash flow. It's a shortish period, but it breaks it down by a week. And it's really important these sort of times, because you'll know when your pain points will be over the next 13 weeks, obviously. And then the budget you set at the start of the year, making sure that it's driven, or the budget is driven by the strategy that you might sit down at the beginning of the year and say, I want to turn over X, or I want X number of holidays. What does that look like from a budgetary perspective? And then revisiting that against actuals through the course of the year.
So how often would that be looked at throughout the year?
Look, I'd say monthly or quarterly at a minimum. Monthly sort of, you get a nice snapshot, but you might have some seasonality that might not have been captured in budget. So a quarter might be a nice snapshot in time for those sorts of businesses. But yeah, like it's important to revisit that, and it also kind of holds you accountable if you're not executing strategy to get the outcome that you budgeted for.
So we mentioned as part of your experience about the pharmacy and retail management sector, and that includes business valuations as well as with pharmacies, but others as well. So with pharmacies, obviously they were definitely an essential service and still remain that way.
Yep.
Was there anything changing in that sector that's worth noting?
Look, over the course of the year, they negotiated their sort of remuneration structure, so that went through. What it did mean is a little small increase in their remuneration for dispensing, so it's helped them along a little bit as their margins have shrunk a little bit over the last few years. They're also looking to get into the COVID jab space, so they're really pushing hard. You might have seen them in the press at the moment. You've got Trent Toomey, who's the president of the Guild, out there pretty much every day saying we're geared up, we're ready to go, we're here to help. So they're really sort of pushing themselves front and centre. But yes, pharmacy have had a sort of good year. They had a lot of hoarding. So we saw a lot of hoarding, not only in just pharmacy, but most retail, late FY 2020. It then sort of stabilized, but it didn't really go backwards. It kept on being used. So those services being used, and certainly with the retail space, every time there's a lockdown, there is a sharp spike in sales.
I'm always find it remarkable how people don't seem to have 3 days worth of toilet paper. Sorry if that's any of our listeners, but I find that shocking. That always seems to be the case.
True.
So yeah, I mean, as far as the pharmacy business goes, I mean, I think it's good that they're looking at getting involved in that, because the faster we can roll all that stuff out, the better. So we can, the faster we have everyone vaccinated, the faster we can get through this. So I think that's really good, and it's something that a lot of industries are looking at getting into, aren't they? I think Bunnings was the latest one I heard.
Yeah, I think they're all getting on the bandwagon. Like, it's not a massive sort of revenue stream. Even like I look after doctors that are administering sort of the AstraZeneca and soon to be Pfizer jabs, but in terms of the remuneration they get, it's not significant. It's more of a community service. So I think the more that you get onto this and peddle it out, I think the better.
All right. Was there anything else you wanted to share with our viewers and listeners, Josip? So most of our audience are professionals who help their business owner clients. So is there anything you wanted to share, maybe a key lesson perhaps about what they should be advising on?
Well, I think clients are really, asking or wanting advice. They may not be asking for it, but I think certainly during these times, there is a great opportunity to get in there and become the trusted advisor for your clients. Share your knowledge, share your own experiences in terms of, what you've done and how you can apply it to, people that you help. It certainly is the case here. Like we undertook a massive sort of strategy review this time sort of last year. And we have been laser focused on this strategy and executing it, since, and we meet weekly to discuss on sort of and projects on how they're going. So, it's an opportunity for advisors to get in there and do the same sort of work with the clients. We've got a number of partners here that are doing the same with their clients. They're getting in there and basically setting down the strategy for the next 3 years. It just gives them a little bit of comfort and certainty, and maybe someone to hold them accountable in terms of driving the business through not uncharted waters, but just over the next few years in what is uncertain times.
Absolutely, that's brilliant advice. Trusted advisor, definitely. There's been some bad times, but if you're there and giving you good advice, they'll be back when it's good as well. So that trusted advisor is definitely the key to it. All right, I think we've probably exhausted your time.
Very good.
We know that I'm sure you could keep talking, but we won't let you. Is there anything else you wanted to finish up on? I think the trusted advisor is probably a pretty good ending anyway. But,
yeah, I think I'm good. I think that's what it's been about for us this year. Is we did it first for ourselves, and a lot of what we've done for ourselves is sort of applicable to all of our clients. So, and it does. You being there as the advisor, just it gives them a level of okay, we're in it together. You'll hold me accountable, and we're just focused at getting the result that you set yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said at the outset, we really appreciate you joining us. Thank you for doing that. We know our audience will get a lot out of what you've been discussing today. So yeah, thanks a lot for coming on board. As we finish up, in the spirit of giving and being part of the community, if you did enjoy the podcast, please rate and review the podcast. 5-star reviews are welcome, and that gets it out into the community. The more 5-star reviews we get, the more people will tune in. You could like us on Facebook, that's SMS Law. Follow us on Twitter, search for us on LinkedIn. And that includes searching for Josip as well and connecting with him on there or through the other platforms that Vincents have. They do send out a lot of other information throughout the year as well, newsletters, etc. So jump on and connect with Josip. I'm sure he'd love to have you as a connection. And if you've got any questions, you might be able to reach out to Josip as well.
Very good.
Jeremy, anything else we want to say for today?
No, other than thank you to the listeners and thank you to Josip for your time today. It's been great.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.